Good evening, everyone. I will call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. by noting that we have two members of council absent this evening. Councillor Rowley sends her regrets as she is not able to join us for this evening's meeting. Councillor Bateman is unable to join us this evening, and I've been asked to relay to everyone that Councillor Bateman suffered a heart attack this past Thursday and has been in the hospital since then. I am in contact with Mrs. Bateman and have been keeping council up to date as I'm able with information that is provided to me. We ask that the community keep the Bateman family in their thoughts and prayers, and also for the medical team that will be working to get Councillor Bateman back on his feet. Before we begin, I will recognize traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. I will also advise that due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting will be held using various formats. Members of council and some municipal staff are present here in council chambers. Other staff members, delegations, and members of the public engaging in the statutory public meeting are joining us via electronic conference technology. The public is invited to join us by viewing this meeting live on the Municipality of Brighton YouTube channel. I will also note that once we proceed into the closed session, the live YouTube stream will end for the duration of tonight's council meeting. And with that, I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Connect, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council alter the agenda to move delegation from Angela Bonamici, Senior Planner, IBI Group, to the statutory public meeting portion of the agenda. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Connect, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that council amend the agenda to add delegation from Jennifer Savini, Templeman LLP, regarding the road allowance closure application number RC01-2021. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect. The council approve the December 13th, 2021 planning meeting agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Members of council, please let me know if you have any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, state the general nature thereof. And there are none noted. So that takes us straight into delegations, and I will advise that delegations have 10 minutes each to present council with their information. That conduct and language must remain civil at all times, and that council is not to engage in any debate or policy decisions during the delegation. So our first delegation is from Joe Johnston regarding the road allowance closure application file number RC01-2021. Joe, are you with us here? I see Joe's iPad on the Zoom.
There we go.
There you go.
Does that work?
I can hear you, Joe.
Good. Good evening, everyone. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and best wishes for Mr. Bateman, speedy recovery. This evening, I just wanted to reinforce our opinions about the road allowance. I have sent previous emails, one regarding the environmental concerns and the habitat for wildlife, etc. And I just wanted to reinforce also the fact that Canada is enhancing its climate change strategy. And I would hope that the council and the municipality takes the climate change into consideration with the woodlot that's on this road allowance. It contributes to the solution. If we allow it to be bulldozed, we're adding to the problem. And I just wanted to make sure that that was in consideration when council makes its decision. I'm also aware that there is an alternative suggestion being made, and we would settle on that if that's the way it has to be, but the preference would be for the municipality to hang on to this resource and keep it in perpetuity. And that's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any questions of clarification from members of council? No. Thank you again, Joe, for your information this evening. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council receive the delegation from Joe Johnston concerning road allowance closure application file number RC01 2021. And Joe, you know that we'll be discussing that under our staff reports this evening. Is there any discussion from members of council on the motion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, the motion is carried. Thank you again, Joe.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is from Diana Keay and Emma Drake, DM Wills Associates, with regard to secondary plan project initiation. And is it Diana? Are you joining us?
Good evening, everyone, and your worship. Yes, it'll just be me this evening.
I'll turn the floor over to you, Diana.
Thank you. I will share my screen if that's all right. Let me know if you can see the presentation. Can you see that?
We can.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to move my screen. All right, so thank you everyone again for having me here this evening. My name is Diana Keay and I'm a planner with DM Wills Associates Limited and the consulting project manager for the Brighton Secondary Plan. We are partnering with other consultants, including KMD Community Planning, who will be leading the public engagement strategy of this project, as well as Metro Economics, who is leading the growth projections analysis for the secondary plan area. The consulting team will be working closely with the municipality during this project. So just a brief agenda of what I will be talking about today. So we're going to go over the background and the objectives of the secondary plan. We'll show you the area, the project schedule, our technical reporting, public consultation, and just a brief introduction of the project team, and then any questions that members of council may have. So you may recall our team's involvement in the official plan update back in 2019. Under that official plan update project, we heard many comments from participating stakeholders who wanted to understand more about the potential development of the Greenfield areas identified within the municipality's official plan. As part of that OP update project, our project team suggested that perhaps a formal recommendation to council should consider the development of a secondary plan or plans for the Greenfield areas. And in 2021, the municipality released an RFQ with respect to initiating a secondary plan, and our team was successful in that bid. So we're starting that project now. So for context, a secondary plan is like a mini official plan. It contains land use designations and associated policies that guide growth and development for a specific area. So while a municipal official plan provides direction for the whole municipality, the secondary plan will focus on the specific areas through this project, the areas that we've identified to promote orderly and appropriate growth and development. The process follows the same rules established under the official plan section of the Planning Act, and the secondary plan will form part of the overall official plan. The objectives of the secondary plan is to refine the future land uses and policies within the Greenfield areas. It will ensure the secondary policies are informed and developed in consultation with integrated traffic, stormwater management and servicing plans, and of course with agency, stakeholder and public consultation and participation throughout the project. To give you an outline of the secondary plan area, everything in beige, I just realized our color scheme isn't the greatest. Maybe I'll change this up later, but everything in beige, can you see my cursor if I do this?
We can.
Perfect, thank you. These include the secondary plan area. So it's identified as the northeast quadrant, the northwest, including this portion here, and then the southwest area. So there will be 3 areas that we are considering under the secondary plan. What you'll see in hash, that is our urban fringe area. So these are the lands that are mostly outside of the urban boundary, which is identified in the black line. And as we go through our secondary plan process, we will be considering the impacts of the lands surrounding the secondary plan area to ensure that we're creating connectivity and that we don't hinder on future development. So we're always considering the land around the areas we're studying to ensure that there is a comprehensive approach for the future. So our project schedule and work plan, we will be undertaking the project in 3 phases. Phase 1 includes the background review and data collection, and this will document existing conditions to form a baseline and to understand where our focus will lie in terms of developing service and future land use plans. Phase 2 will include the preparation of technical studies, and they will be prepared to identify requirements that can support future development. So this includes growth projections, a transportation network that also includes active transportation, and municipal servicing opportunities, so water, sewer, and stormwater management. It also includes, our final phase will include, the 3rd phase will include the actual preparation of the secondary plan, and that will be informed by phases 1 and 2. Public consultation forms a key part of the secondary plan process, and so public consultation will happen throughout the duration of the project in all 3 phases. The project is aimed to be completed in July of 2023. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we're going to try and stay on that timeline to ensure that we can push the items forward. So as part of phase 2, I mentioned we will be preparing technical reports. As part of that, we are undertaking a growth forecast review report, and this will be prepared in consultation with the county's municipal comprehensive review that they're currently completing for their official plan update. The technical report will review the growth needs of the municipality to support future populations, and this includes also employment opportunities. So we're going to look at both the residential and employment opportunities and needs of the community. The servicing and infrastructure report will review municipal servicing. So like I said, water and sewer, and we're going to look at different options for stormwater management. There's a lot of methodology and technologies out there that we can review and potentially apply to the area. The transportation network plan, this will review both vehicular and pedestrian networks that connects the existing built up area, so everything that's within the built boundary today, with the secondary plan areas. And then of course, we'll be looking into the fringe areas for future connectivity. We will identify important nodes and connections and review any potential improvements that's required within the municipality. A review of the natural heritage system is being completed under a separate contract. So this is happening concurrently, but through a different process. So as that information is being completed, it will be available to our project team. So that way we can review and ensure that the information and data coming out of that natural heritage review is applied to the secondary plan area. So we can ensure any areas that are required for conservation or preservation or constraints to development are identified and we can move forward. Our public engagement strategy is vast. It has a lot of community events that are happening. We actually did our community walking tour today, so it was a good 6 hours of walking. Unfortunately, participation was low. We had 5 registered attendees and only 2 came. However, we did end up getting a lot of data and feedback from the municipality who came on the tour as well. So that is helping us inform what the municipality wants to see and a few members of the public what they would like to see. The community walking tour information will be available on the municipality's website. So anyone who wants to undertake that walking tour on their own and document their thoughts and feelings about the secondary plan areas, they can fill that out and send it to the project team for consideration. As we go throughout the project, we'll be undertaking online surveys, open houses, completing interactive mapping so the public and any stakeholders can participate in our GIS mapping systems. And of course, we'll have a statutory public meeting. We do have a web page already set up on the municipality's website, and this will be updated continuously as deliverables are completed and as notices are required and new public engagement events are happening. So we would ask that everyone keep an eye on that for new events that are coming through. We'll also be sending out notices again to assessed owners to ensure that they understand what's going on with their properties, and to anyone who is interested in being part of the project. And we've included them on our contact list. All of this consultation will be summarized into a report, so you will understand what we have done and what the community was telling us, including our responses to the community as we go through this project. We've formed a technical advisory committee, so this is comprising of staff and agencies. We had our first meeting last week, and it was just introductory and to provide a high-level review of what we've completed so far and where we're headed with the project. So we'll rely on the technical expertise from staff and agencies as we go through the project. We'll also be forming working groups, and this will comprise of landowners and members of the public. So that way we can garner local expertise, knowledge, feedback, and information on the secondary plan areas as well. So this is just a visual representation simplifying our project process for ease of reference. So the secondary plan is divided into 2 main groups. There's the process in which we are completing the project work to form the secondary plan policies and mapping. And then there's implementation, what we need to do in order to have the secondary plan become part of the official plan and in effect. So we're at the first square, background data and information for technical review. As I mentioned, we just started the project, so we're at the moment collecting a lot of the information that is existing on the ground, reviewing existing reporting, and starting that initial consultation with the public to gather all that much needed information in order to start forming the technical reporting in phase 2. So as I mentioned, the project team, DM Mills Associates Limited, will be undertaking the land use planning, traffic, and municipal engineering component of the project. KMD Community Planning and Consulting will be leading the public consultation component, and Metro Economics will be undertaking growth forecasting. So that is the presentation. I will stop sharing. Can you see me, Your Worship?
Sure can, Ms. Keay, and I will open the floor to council for any questions of clarification. Council? Councilor LeBlanc? He's good.
Okay.
He's good.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I was looking at your secondary plan study area map. This one here, you can see it. Where you have your, I can't make out the colors, kind of pinkish beige. You have
Yes.
urban fringe area. What do you use the definition as fringe? The planning concept.
So through your worship, anything that is outside of the intensification boundary that's already built to urban intensification targets, and anything that's outside of our secondary plan area. So it's those lands that are not quite being developed today or being developed in a piecemeal fashion, or lands that are located outside of our secondary plan area. So we can consider that as we form the secondary plan mapping and policies. We're going to consider the urban fringe. So the fringe area is the area outside of the secondary plan area. We'll consider those lands to ensure that as we move forward with potential land use designation and the network options of servicing and transportation, that we're not hindering on those urban fringe, because those will be next potentially for development in the future.
Yes, thank you. So from what I got from your answer, when you say fringe, they're going to be part of the official plan. So if there's any roads or anything that has to be designed for housing or employment lands are going to be used up in those fringe lands. They are going to be part of the study.
So through your worship, they will be considered during the study, but there won't be any policies or mapping within the urban fringe area. It's mostly going to be for just the secondary plan area, because remember, as we're doing plans, we want to ensure that we're not looking at these areas in isolation. We have to see the impacts of the lands around it. So that's what we're considering throughout the process. So we're reviewing the urban fringe area in consultation with the secondary plan areas, but we're only providing mapping and associated policies for the secondary plan area.
Go ahead.
Since I was, through you, Chair, since I was part of the planning committee with you in 2019, one of the things that I realized that we missed by sitting on this council for 3 years is basically woodlots, because we put it at 0.5 of a hectare would be a significant woodlot, while other people have it at 50 hectares as a significant woodlot, like the county has another, but Brighton is still at 0.5. In this secondary plan, are you going to look at changing it from 0.5 hectares to 50 hectares so we get in line with the rest of the county?
Through your worship, we are going to rely on the natural heritage data that will be provided to us under separate contract. Our scope does not include looking at the natural heritage system, but we will be reviewing policy to ensure that we're aligning with the policies that are coming down from the county. So it's premature at this point to indicate whether or not that's appropriate. We will be reviewing the data and information as it comes to us to identify policies that are appropriate for the area. So as we go through that process, hopefully we'll be answering your questions.
Anything further from pardon me, anything further from members of council? Councillor Tadman?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm assuming that the secondary plan area that's drawn on this map came from the official plan, and the areas now are the ones that you're going to focus on?
Ms. Keay?
Through you, your worship. So the secondary plan areas were identified when we were doing the official plan update as a recommendation to council. These areas were further refined by the municipality when it was released through the RFQ.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Thank you, Ms. Keay. We appreciate you coming and giving us this update on the, I guess, the initiation of our secondary planning process. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect, that council receive the delegation from Diana Keay, Project Manager, DM Wills Associates, regarding the secondary plan project initiation. Is there any further discussion from members of council? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Thank you again, Diana.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
And the next delegation headed by council is from Jennifer Savini with regard to the road closure application file number RC 01-2021. Ms. Savini, are you with us? questions.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council and staff. Thank you for the opportunity again to speak to you. I originally appeared before you in June in response to an application by the developer to close and purchase the road allowance. When my clients became aware of this application, they wanted the opportunity to purchase the half adjacent to their properties and filed an application on that basis. At the first meeting, council expressed an interest in exploring retaining the lands as municipal lands. And that became and remains our client's preferred course of action, that the entire road allowance be maintained as municipal green space. This meets my client's objectives of maintaining the lands as natural green space and has a benefit to the municipality, as Mr. Johnston indicated, in terms of the wildlife corridor, the green space that it offers, control over tree preservation, and so on. So I'm here tonight to request that municipal council consider maintaining the entire road allowance as municipal green space. Now, if council does make that decision, or if council makes a decision in accordance with staff's recommendation to maintain the eastern half as municipal green space, I also respectfully request that our client's application fee be returned to them. The application and fee was filed in response to the developer's application, but since filing that, focus has been on maintaining the lands as municipal property. The objective of maintaining these lands as green space has remained consistent throughout this process. The means of achieving that has adjusted over time. So I suggest that the application hasn't formally been processed as a matter of how this has evolved and the way it's come about. So that's my request on behalf of my clients who live on Algonquin Avenue, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Savini. I'll open the floor to members of council for questions of clarification on the delegation. Council? Thank you, Ms. Savini. We appreciate your information. As you know, it is on the agenda later this evening for us to discuss how we'll be moving forward with this road closure. With
Thank you,
that, I have a
Worship.
motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that council received the delegation from Jennifer Savini, Templeman LLP regarding the road allowance closure application file number RC 01-2021. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Thank you again, Jennifer. That takes us to our statutory public meeting with a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Connect, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that council move into the statutory public meeting December 13th at 6:58 p.m. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And you all might remember the very wordy statement that I would make before we entered into the information in our statutory public meeting. Thanks to Director Walsh, we've endeavored to make that wording a little more user-friendly, if you will. So here's the new wording, and we'll see how it works out for everyone. The municipality of Brighton takes steps beyond the requirement of the Planning Act to engage the community in land use planning initiatives. The municipality also holds a statutory public meeting on the planning application and then receives a staff report with a recommendation on which council will make a decision. After council has made our decision, any person or public body may appeal council's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal as long as they have made an oral submission at this meeting or provided comments in writing to the clerk's office and requested notice of the decision from the clerk's office. This is also true of any person or public body that wishes to participate in an appeal. For details or information on appealing decisions of council, please visit the municipal website or contact the clerk's office. So we have one item in our statutory public meeting this evening. It is with regard to files B17 2021, B18 2021, and Z12 2021 from Rosslyn Builders and 1751819 Ontario Incorporated. We've already gone through that. So Mr. Barry, by what method and on what date was notice of the zoning bylaw amendment given?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The public notice of the zoning bylaw was given in compliance with the Planning Act, same as the consent application. Notice was provided by first-class mail notice to landowners within 120 meters of the subject lands, and a public notice sign was posted on the property. The notice was also posted on the municipal planning webpage as well.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications?
Yes, the consent applications B17-2021 and B18-2021 will sever portions of the vacant parcels to the west and add it to the parcels located at 40 Rosslyn Drive and 42 Rosslyn Drive to create larger rear yards. The zoning bylaw amendment application Z12-2021 proposes to rezone the severed parcels from the special residential zone type 1 35 zone to the urban residential type 1 zone to establish consistent zoning across the Rosslyn Estates subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Does the applicant or the applicant's agent wish to make any comments this evening?
Hello. Yeah, good evening, Your Worship, Council and staff. I have a presentation just to kind of give an overview and to answer any questions or provide any clarifications. So I'm just going to share my screen.
I'll get you to introduce yourself too while you do that, please.
Yes, not a problem. I am Angela Bonamici. Sorry. There we go. Can you see my screen?
No.
No? Okay. Okay. I think there. How about now?
Yes, now we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So yes, I'm Angela Bonamici. I'm a senior planner with IBI Group, and we are the agent on behalf of the owner of 98 Sanford Street and 40 and 42 Rosslyn Drive. As Josh said, the applications consist of 3 properties, that being 98 Sanford Street, 40 Rosslyn Drive, and 42 Rosslyn Drive. More specifically, with 98 Sanford Street, the application deals with this portion of land. And basically, we want to sever both parcels and add this awkward parcel to 40 Rosslyn and this rectangular parcel to 42 Rosslyn Drive. So here's a little more in depth to provide a clear-cut image. Severed parcel 1 is this rectangular piece, and it'll be severed from 98 Sanford and added to 42 Rosslyn Drive. And severed parcel 2, which has an area of 205 square meters, will be severed from 98 Sanford Street and added to 40 Rosslyn Drive. To facilitate this request, we have submitted 2 consent applications and 1 zoning bylaw amendment. The zoning bylaw amendment is to affect only this area and to eliminate both lots having dual zoning on the properties. So in the OP policy, the majority of the subject lands are under residential, and the subject area of the applications are all residential, whereas 98 Sanford has other designations attached to the property. They're not a part of this application. The only part of the zoning bylaw amendment is this portion that will be severed from 98 Sanford Street. The existing zoning for 98 Sanford Street is R1 Special Provision 35, floodplain and environmental protection zone. And for 40 Rosslyn Drive and 42 Rosslyn Drive, the zoning is R1 zone. Our zoning bylaw amendment is to affect this area of 98 Sanford Street, the severed portions. And what we are requesting is to rezone, to eliminate the special provision 35 and to make it just R1 zoning. So that's just pretty much the applications that are before you. And if anyone has any questions or needs any clarification, I can answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bonamici. We appreciate you providing us with that information. I will ask, are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications? Madam Clerk, are you aware of anyone who's come in? No, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of council with regard to the consent zoning bylaw amendment applications? Seeing none. Ms. Bonamici, I'll ask if you have any final comments.
I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Barry, do you have any final comments?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Does council wish to make a decision on the consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications this evening? And with that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council receives the report regarding consent applications B17, 2021, B18, 2021, and zoning bylaw amendment application Z12, 2021, as prepared by the Planning and Development Department. The council enacts a bylaw to rezone certain lands described as part of Lot 1, Plan 490, Pond Area PL 490, Brighton, being Part 1 on Plan 39R 14342, part of Factory Street, Plan 28 being Part 5 on Plan 39R 14343, part of Lot 2, Concession 2 being Part 6, 7, and 8 on Plan 39R 14342, STNC 396376, Municipality of Brighton and Lot 7 and Lot 8 on 39M 933 from the Special Urban Residential Type 135 zone to the Urban Type 1 Residential Zone. That council grant provisional consent to applications B17, 2021 and B18, 2021, subject to the following conditions. Each condition shall be fulfilled no later than 1 year from the date of the mailing of the decision. Application for zoning bylaw amendment Z12, 2021 be finalized. All taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. A 0.3 meter by 0.3 meter portion of the benefiting lot created through consent B17, 2021 is conveyed to the municipality of Brighton for the purposes of breaking up a lot in a registered plan of subdivision. A 0.3 meter by 0.3 meter portion of the benefiting lot created through consent B18, 2021 is conveyed to the municipality of Brighton for the purposes of breaking up a lot in a registered plan of subdivision. That geospatial data of the surveyed parcel fabric with respect to the severed and retained lands shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. That a digital copy of a registrable survey for each of the severed lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And that ends our statutory public meeting with a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Connect, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that council move out of the statutory public meeting December 13th, 2021 at 7:09 p.m. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. That takes us into planning and development reports. Our first report is with regard to affordable housing initiatives. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Nothing for the mayor.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Connect, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council receives a staff report dated December 13th, 2021 regarding affordable housing initiatives. The council directs staff to draft community improvement plan policies that support the development of affordable housing projects. That staff be directed to research land securement for the purposes of supplying affordable housing, and that council consider in the operating budget financial incentives that support a community improvement plan for affordable housing. Is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this report forward. I think it's something very important for us to be talking about and making plans for. I do have a question. We talk about affordable housing a lot, and I just want to make sure we have a clear definition of what affordable housing is, because what's affordable is different to different people, and I just want to make sure we're very clear on what we're talking about.
Director Walsh.
Sure. The provincial policy statement gives in some direction on what is meant by affordability. So it's usually for household incomes that are 30% or less of the gross household incomes. That's the rate at which you can afford to pay rent or make mortgage payments. What target of that total housing market is slated towards affordability? It's usually the 30th percentile, i.e. the lowest 30th group among household incomes, and up to the 60th percentile. So it's just over the 50th, just over half of households. So those are normally the targets. Having said all that, that's provincial policy. CMHC, Canadian Housing Mortgage Corporation, they give targets, regional targets. So they issue a bulletin from time to time. And this reference that the county housing office refers to and utilizes when they're giving out grants or other supports for affordable housing. So they'll give a target rental rate. So I believe it's $1,400 a month is what's considered affordable, $1,400 and lower. So some people will say that's not really that very affordable for many people, and it probably not, but it becomes the default target in delivering affordable housing. So if people were to apply for capital housing grant to the current program that is offered by the county, that's the reference that they would be looking at.
Follow-up.
Thank you. I guess, and that's why I was asking the question. We're talking about some incentives, and I was wondering how we determine whether or not something's affordable in order for people to actually take advantage of those incentives. I just want to make sure that we're going through this process and we end up with, in fact, affordable housing, because it's so important right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Director Walsh and Mr. Josh, for bringing this. And this was a motion that was brought up by Councillor Anderson and Councillor Bateman at the same time for affordable housing. My point is that you made a statement in this that it was 30% to income. Do you know what the base income, the average income for the municipality of Brighton is? And are any of the homes that are presently going to be brought forward to be built or in the future, are any of them going to be in that price range for that 30%?
Director Walsh.
So Census Canada reports on household incomes and it gives a range. I haven't looked at those numbers recently. So I don't know, not sure the answer to your first question, what the average household affordability is in Brighton currently. I can get that information for you. The second thing is, yeah, the 30th percentile is not going to have been through these housing statements and done my own analysis in other jurisdictions and other places that I worked. It's really tough to achieve that 30th percentile without some pretty aggressive efforts to achieve affordability. And usually we're talking in terms of the housing continuum, from homelessness through to assisted living. That 30th percentile, up to the 30th percentile, you're probably looking at some assisted living of some sort. So which would be much lower than the CMHC targets, which is more, might be in the category of attainable housing.
Yes, and while I was looking at your presentation, I saw the garden suites, or they call them granny flats, which are single homes, small volumes, which are quite affordable. And I saw something similar to that they're doing in Coburg, in one of the new subdivision on King Street. So on the weekend, I was there looking at them instead of doing row houses like we're doing. But wasn't this brought up somewhere in the rural? Wasn't it Golden Pond or something that wanted to build 50 or 60 of these? You know where this ended up?
Yeah, through the mayor to council, we've had some discussions with the proponents of Golden Pond. They're looking at putting in an expansion on, or an addition onto the existing building there. And then they also propose to have some abodes, as they call them, which I'm not sure if they're trailers or if they're, you know, if they're using a trailer frame and then customizing it and trying to have some kind of home arrangement in association with the facility. It sounds like it's going to be very, it would be proposed to be very independent of the seniors facility. So I'm not sure how much they're going to be related. So these are some of the questions staff have asked. Is it really a trailer park in rural acreage, essentially, or is it really affordable homes associated, you know, for seniors associated with the existing facility? Those are some of the questions we've had, and we'll follow up with those questions with them.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Your microphone. Sorry, Councillor Anderson. Madam Clerk, it would appear Councillor Anderson's microphone battery is not keeping him live. Well, for now, but it went out on you. So we're gonna see if we can get another microphone for you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. I was saying my largest concern here is that if we build affordable homes based on even the criteria that we're talking about, the criteria that's in here, we need those partners, and we need to make sure that the homes or the rentals or whatever get into the right, I'll just say it, the right hands of the right people, and that they're not purchased, gobbled up, and used for other purposes or other types of accommodation. So I don't know how we control that, and how I'd use that word control, but how do we keep that in perspective? Now I see the Central Mortgage and Housing could be a good partner to work with, get based on one's income, and get subsidies that way, and there would be a process where they would apply to get that type of housing. And this can be rent to own, perhaps, those type of things. It's probably more where I'd like to see, but I know I think in here it says build 4 affordable homes in a given year, that the county suggests that for Brighton. Who's going to build them and who's going to get them? So if we can figure that out, and the developers probably trying to figure it out too. I know I like some of the things we're going to be looking at down the road here shortly, even tonight maybe. I saw in Coburg and Port Hope, I think Councillor mentioned it tonight. He took a little tour of that area, and these multiple like 12 unit type buildings must be more affordable. But again, the right people, or the people with the real need are hopefully are going to be able to get into these and purchase these or rent them if they're supposed to, that's what's going to happen. So maybe, have we given that much thought on how a developer can build homes and the right purchaser gets in it? With everything going the way it's going, and with inflation and the talk about interest rates today that was flying around in the CBC. Yes, they're going to hold back, but they're only going to hold back if they can hold back. And so there's some signals out there that we need to be trying to think with them or ahead of them to do this right, and get some proper affordable housing in the hands of the families that need it. So are we doing all that?
Director Walsh.
To the mayor. So the CMHC is a partner. They are providing programs for both the county, the Consolidated Service Manager, i.e. the county, that administers the Housing Services Act locally. So the province may give the county some money to then forward on to developers or nonprofit agencies, as may be the case, to provide affordable housing. So, and they also will administer some funding from CMHC and housing. So the my understanding of the current program, haven't been directly involved, but my understanding of the program is that the CMHC will, for awarded projects, give something like 80%. If the developer or landlord offers 80% of the market rate of the rent, then the CMHC will provide the last 20% under agreement to do that over 10 years. So that will be, say apartment building, half the units will be assigned to that affordability, and the developer will have to be a little more patient getting the return on their investment. But at least it's quite secure investment because it's guaranteed income from CMHC housing. So that's just one model.
And that model is in use with the county as a partner and a private developer in Coburg.
Right.
Underway as we speak.
Okay, thank you.
So how do we speed up bringing that together, that concept together with developers, with the county, with ourselves? How do we get that moving? Because there's building going all around us, and some are saying, oh, you have to have 10% of this, and you have to have X amount of that, and it still doesn't seem to be enough. And I think what you've just touched on, I knew about, but I think that's a prime candidate right there. But how do we bring that together? How do we stimulate it a little to move a little faster?
Director?
It is tough. I've been working with a company Atria out of Oshawa who specialize in affordable housing projects. They have done many of these models, built different locations throughout the province, mostly the outer ring of GTA, and they're having a hard time finding land. You know, they just can't find, the developers are not very quick to just sell land. Developers like to build. That's where their profits are. So they're not very quick to sell land to someone who might be specializing in affordable housing. That they feel that they can make an application just as well as anybody else for that CMHC funding. So I think that's the quandary, and then maybe they're not as in tune with the programming and as quick to get their applications in. So there's maybe some lag that we're observing.
So one last thing, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So the secondary plan, this is ideal timing here. So is the secondary plan going to dig down in that perspective, what we're talking about right now? Is that one of the criteria that will be involved in that?
Director?
I think if you, through the mayor, I think if you take a look at some of the tools listed in the attachment number 1, that will be largely some of the things that you'll see reflected in the secondary planning policies for affordable housing. There's a lot of different tools listed in there, as well as some of our designations. There will be some encouragement to have certain minimum densities. Those densities might necessitate a developer to offer smaller units, more height, so that there is a bigger initial investment in density. So if I'm building a 100-unit apartment building, I'll probably get it started if I've got 50 or 60% of people committed to rent, or I'm very confident in the market. But at least now we have a big flush of supply, as opposed to single detached that usually are not built until there's a agreement of sale. So that agreement of sales are going to be always at the margin of the market. So they're always going to be generally higher, as we've been seeing in this market. Whereas an apartment building, even if they're condos, they're going to be more focused on getting the sales done so they can get their loans secured so they can get building out. So, and at higher densities, smaller units, they tend to rent or sell lower as well. So you get those two benefits out of a higher density format.
And with condos come condo fees, which just adds to the, you know, like,
If that development has high amenities that you're paying for through the condos, yes. If you're not paying for high amenities, condo fees just reflect taking care of the capital, which every homeowner presumably does at some point or another.
I know how it works, but I'm just, you know, I appreciate your answers, and I need to, it's got to be out there being punched all the time that we need to get things moving. If it's the developers or the county or it's ourselves, what's the holdup? And I know I hear about it all the time from federal and provincial politicians, but I think we need to take whatever steps we can do to push it. Because it's happening around us. We need it happening here and it's not so much for people that are moving here. They can move anywhere they want if they're wherever they're from, unless you're coming here for employment or something like that. But we need housing for the people that grow up here, live here, and families that want to stay here. So that's where I'm heading to tonight. So, okay.
And through the mayor, I guess related to that, you'll recall a condition of draft approval for the Brighton Meadows subdivision, minimum of 10% of the singles and the semis were to have second units.
Yeah,
so that I think that will make a significant contribution, if only not just 10%, but now we have the developer coming out with a format, a purpose-built format for second units, and likely a marketing format too. So there will be jigging up to market second units, and they'll probably exceed that 10% objective that we've given them.
Thank you. I'm gonna go over to someone else, and
one more thing.
I'll come back to you,
10% thing there.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. To Councillor Anderson's point, we are talking about it and we are getting it going, but we aren't the builders or the developers. So all we can do is provide the programs. We can't make it happen necessarily as much as we'd like to. So when we're talking about affordable housing, we're not just talking about housing, though. We know the reality is that the more units, the cheaper it will be. And so, that's why we need apartments and we need that sort of thing. And we need to talk about property. Obviously, that's an issue, is that we need to talk about property and find property. The hard part in this and the reality in this is that we all know we need affordable housing, but not everyone likes affordable housing. So we'll get pushback on that as well. So I just want to make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's and we talk about everything. And that's why I appreciate that we're doing this now. Something else Councillor Anderson brought up is making sure it gets in the right hands. And what popped into my mind when he said that is short-term accommodations. And is there some way that we can make sure that what we consider affordable housing does not become short-term accommodations? We don't want that. Obviously, people can buy these things to rent. Obviously, that's fine. That's how it works, but not for short-term income. Is there any way we can maybe prevent that from happening? Director?
Sure. I think the official plan policies and the zoning bylaw amendment that council's passed will do that, because there's that 15% maximum density of any short-term accommodation. So if someone comes forward to apply for, and we've considered a draft licensing bylaw, and so that has to be revised in response to some of the comments we received, and including legal comments. But when that comes forward, and if it's passed by council, then if somebody comes in with a license, we do that density check. And if there's too many STAs in that area, i.e. going over that 15%, then they won't qualify for a license, period. So it won't be able to be used as a short-term accommodation, and it will be part of the conventional housing stock by their ownership or rent.
Follow up?
Yeah, just to follow up on that. So, but if we're offering incentive to a developer or a builder, can we not somehow stipulate that it's not to become a short-term? I guess we can't control what happens maybe down the road if that were to be sold, but initially we don't want anything that we're subsidizing to become short-term accommodation, correct?
Director?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think most of these programs are subject to an agreement. So when they're receiving funds, they have to enter an agreement, and those agreements can say, you know, you're not going to have it as a short-term accommodation. It's going to be a long-term rental or ownership situation and not to a tourist, a member of the traveling public.
Thank you both. Councillor Anderson?
Well, I was thinking about passing on this conversation with the 10%. You mentioned 10% with a development here that they would do 10, and we agreed to that. So, so let's say there's 200 homes and they agree to 10%. But in that conversation, wasn't it said that it would be at the latter part of the phases that 10% would come into play?
Director?
Mr. Barry, the manager of approvals, may recall the actual phasing of it, but because it's focusing on the single detached and the semis, it will tend to be kind of phase specific. You're right, and but because we didn't put it in the townhouses, and I can't remember if they're phasing from the south or from the north. Mr. Barry, if you could assist.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the developer had indicated that the 10% would be the last units. They are phasing from the south, which is Reichland. But staff are pretty confident that market forces will actually dictate that it's going to be sooner than the latter phases.
Yeah, I hope so, because I sort of kicked myself after agreeing that without seeing that nailed down. And I did make a point about I'd like to see it happening from the get-go almost, but if we see that, that'll be good. And I think it's on record that we want to see that. So let's get it. That's fine. They can go ahead with their plan, but I think that's important that we see some of these things happening up front, not on the tail end, because timing is important.
Yes, I should clarify too, it's 10% per phase. Yeah, so it wouldn't be to the last phase.
Wouldn't be, say that again, Mr. Perry?
It'd be 10% per phase, so they wouldn't necessarily be pushing it all to the last
Right.
phase. It's per
Oh, I
phase.
didn't get that.
It may be the last build out of the
Yes,
phase,
of the phase.
but it won't be the last
All right.
phase.
Yes.
And it's my understanding that both of the builders on that property intend to market second units as part of their marketing scheme. So I suspect that we'll see a 10% at minimum. We'll get to the minimum very quickly.
Just keep
That's-
reminding.
I just
Yeah.
think
That's our idea, we know.
anything further on the motion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, the motion is carried. That takes us to a development agreement, B13 2020 and B14 2020. Andrew Sherman, Mary Anderson, and Scott Anderson, 677 County Road 64, Part 1 on Plan 39R 14371. And it's not coming up. Mr. Barry, is this yours?
Yes, it is.
Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
No, just that the proponent would like to get their severance over as soon as possible.
Well, that's probably why we're here this evening. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, and I'll need a seconder that council receives the Planning and Development Department report dated December 13th, 2021, regarding a development agreement to fulfill condition number 1 of provisional consent approval for municipal files numbers B13 2020 and B14 2020. That council resolves to hereby direct the mayor and the clerk to execute the development agreement provided in attachment 4. That council proceed to enact a bylaw authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign the development agreement pertaining to consent B13 2020 and B14 2020. That council authorize the municipal solicitor through an acknowledgement and direction agreement to register the enacted bylaw for the development agreement, including making any necessary revisions to the legal description, names, or undertakings as may be necessary. Is there a seconder? Councillor Tadman? Is there any discussion on the motion? Councillor Tadman?
Just for one lot to build one house, I can't believe how much paperwork it took to get to this point, but I'm certainly glad we're finally there.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Councillor LeBlanc?
Thank you. Through your chair for Director Josh, did you both read the Lower Trench reports and agree with it?
Mr. Barry?
Yes, we've read the Lower Trent reports and I respectfully disagree with their interpretation on the significant woodlot. I believe that the intent of the environmental protection policies have been adhered to. in this development.
And you only have a disagreement with that?
I'm just focusing on the significant woodlot. I believe all the other policies have been addressed, including the wetland and the boundary from the wetland.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to a report on Applewood Meadows Phases 3 and 4, notice of complete applications and community open house. Mr. Barry, this is your report. We've read it. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. A motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect. The council receives a staff report dated December 13th, 2021 regarding notice of complete applications for a plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and consent for the property described as Concession 1, part of Lot 5, Plan 28, being Part 1 on Registered Plan 39R 6003. The council direct planning staff to circulate the plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and consent applications to the Sustainability Advisory Working Committee and the Accessibility Advisory Committee for comments. The council direct planning staff to give public notice of a statutory public meeting after the community open house has been conducted. The applicants have been revised in response to the open house, and the municipal peer reviewer has completed their review of the supporting materials. Is there any discussion from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Director of Public Works and Director of Planning and I have had discussions on this one. Normally, when it comes to subdivision like this, to myself personally as a council, I can't speak with the rest, to get the system going forward and to get stuff done, there isn't a history. But this one, between phase 3 and phase 4, there is a history with phase 1 and phase 2. And this is where I have a problem here. So if you just indulge me a little bit, Mayor, we have a stormwater management pond that the staff did a study that only meets a 50-year rain event. We don't know who owns it with. If we own it, we're accountable for it. If the planner owns it or the developer owns it, he's accountable to bring it to a 100-year rain event. If we've assumed it, that means all the taxpayers and the ratepayers in Brighton are going to have to pay to have it upgraded to the cost of about $1 million to $1.5 million. The thing is, there was hydrants missing. There's still a whole bunch of deficiencies, and there's also parts of it that haven't been assumed that now that it looks like we're not going to have a letter of credit for. So before I give somebody an okay to move ahead with the rest, I would like to have phase 1, phase 2, and all of it straightened out. Because this is the third council in a row that are dealing with issues on this one site. I have no problem with what he wants to build other than the 40 houses to the north. He's by a cold creek, which is a spring runoff, and he's right on the creek. So if you're going to go with the lower Trent, he would have to be 30 meters from it. So, and he's right beside it. So there's 40 on the north, on the west would totally have to go. But I have a problem with going forward with this. And I can't vote for it until phase 1 and phase 2 and find out with the stormwater management ponds, if they meet the 100-year rain event, as was presented to the Minister of Environment on an ECA. The staff has done a study by Jules Engineering. They said if we use the freeboard, it'll only meet 50. So where are the costs and how much more? If we allow it, if we don't correct it first, like we have a child that speeds with a car, wrecks the car, doesn't bring with gas, you don't give him the keys anymore. So I, as a councillor, I have a rough time giving him the keys till the rest of it is fixed. Fixes the rest, I'll gladly vote for this in a blink of an eye. Because we need the housing and we need the project and it helps in our tax base. But the thing is, as it stands, I can't go for it. I think you and I have had that serious discussion. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And just to be clear, this motion is not about giving anybody the keys. It's about talking about giving people keys at some point in the future. So we aren't approving anything this evening. We are only asking staff to circulate information provided to us, to receive a report, and to give notice that there will be an open house at some point in the very near future, so that the public can also offer their comments on this, which I think is vitally important. So I would hope the council supports that level of public consultation. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And I was going to say something similar, that we're not deciding on this project yet. We're deciding to get more input, which is actually what we need. So I just wanted to comment. First of all, I want to say thank you for having these open houses. I'm noticing there's a common theme in these open houses, and there's, people are asking or have concerns about water, wastewater, environmental impact, traffic issues. Does it fit? Is it needed? And drainage and grading. And so this isn't necessarily a question I need answers for. I just want to make sure we have a lot of development going on. Not everyone always understands the processes that we go through and the volume of reading that we do. Our agenda tonight was, I think, 2 packs of paper deep. 2 trees, right? And the amount of, unfortunately, I read mine on my iPad, but the amount of information that we do have, and I just want to make sure that we're able to clearly answer those questions for people, and that council is aware. I call it the big 5 questions. I've mentioned it before. It seems to be it's the similar questions every time, and we often know the answers as member of council, and we know the processes that happen, but not everyone does. And I just want to make sure we're doing a good job educating the people who live in this community and have concerns, so that they understand that we actually are going through those processes and that we do have answers to those questions. So it's really just a comment at this point.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Council Tadman.
I absolutely know where you're going with trying to get this voted on, but the one question that we never seem to get an answer on, this Storm Pond, who owns it? Because Councillor LeBlanc is making a really good point. If we don't know who owns it, how do we move forward? And then I don't even understand the total of the other storm water plant that's going to be on that property. So how do we move forward if there's so many things that aren't sufficiently approved at this point, and what is assumed and what hasn't been assumed? I understand that this is all the same developer that's doing all this from the beginning. I don't know, otherwise correct me if I'm wrong. So it's not going to, I probably will agree to let it go forward, because I understand tomorrow night there's an open, not an open house, but a viewing, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And certainly there'll be a lot of people that are really going to be upset, because if any subdivision in this town, in this municipality, by far I've had the most complaints from this area. So I just want to make that statement at this point. I know that this is going to move forward. It needs, we've got to recognize what's being put there, but I certainly can concur with what Councillor LeBlanc is saying.
Well, thank you for that. And there was a motion put on the floor to endeavor to find out where the ownership of that.
Yes, a long time
It
ago.
was some time ago, and
Yes.
we haven't received.
It was kicked to the 3rd quarter, then it was kicked to the 4th quarter, and we never got an answer.
Okay,
I
well-
already have the answer, but I'm waiting to come from
Right.
staff. So
Do you have a response to that, Director?
Sure. My recollection is that there was a report from the manager of infrastructure, and maybe it was on more than one issue here. Maybe I'm crossing over issues and don't have this 100% accurate. But if we're talking about the Orchard Gate subdivision stormwater management facility pond, my recollection when I checked was that we own the land in which it's situated. However, that there was some ambiguity in the wording of the assumption bylaw that was passed, whether it included the storm pond at the same time as the streets. And we did seek a legal opinion. I recall it being presented to council in a previous version, and I'd have to go check that. And then the ECA, however, my understanding is that hasn't been transferred from the developer to the municipality. So that's my narrative on that as best I can recall. But
Can we just leave it at this? Can I
Leave it at
ask
that,
you
yeah.
to take that information and council's concern back to your colleagues in senior management, and perhaps I too will follow up with the CAO, and maybe we can get a firm staff report that speaks to this. So we have an idea, well, so we have a firm idea and a knowledge of who actually has ownership of what, whose ECA we're operating under. Is that okay or not? And how do we properly move this forward? No, nobody wants to sit and wag fingers at anybody. We all just want to move this project forward. We all just want to make sure we're in compliance and doing the right thing. And we all want to make sure that our friends at the MECP aren't going to come down and wag their finger at us, because frankly, I think we've dealt with that enough in this municipality, and we want to do things right moving forward. Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you very much for that, Mayor. Thank you very much for that, Director. There was a study done, sanctioned by the Director of Public Works, by Jules Engineering, Brian Keane. In his report, it says it may meet a 50-year rain event if you use the freeboard. And in an ECA, you can't use the freeboard. You will have to have 1 meter of freeboard. So you can't meet a 25-year rain event. So anyway, one way to do it, the pond's got to be done, and who pays for it? The developer or the residents or the taxpayers of Brighton? My other question has to do with assuming, when we assume in this subdivision.
Okay, actually, Councillor LeBlanc, I'm going to back off now. We've gone around this.
I just want one question.
Okay,
Last question. It has nothing to do with the pond.
ask the question.
It has to do, when we assume a piece of property, whether this one or any other one, and there's a trail circling the thing. When we assume it, do we also assume the trail?
So that really has nothing to do with the motion in front of us.
No, nothing.
So I'll ask you to perhaps get back to members of council by email so that we have that answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from members of council? Councillor Anderson, on the motion.
Well,
Please.
just, I don't have a bunch of questions, just one. What's the timeline on getting the answers on this so we can move ahead and the community can know that things are being put to bed and taken care of with this, rather than just another review and down the road?
No, I'm not sure Director Walsh can answer that particular question, but would you
What's a
like to,
reasonable,
would you like
what's
to
a
tackle it?
reasonable expectation?
Sure, I suspect that the answers can be forthcoming sooner than the complexity of the question, because I feel that there's been enough work done by staff on those questions that can assist in putting it to bed. And I think maybe it just needs maybe a little bit more detail on the, more flesh on the bone. I think there was a report that went forward to council, and it may not have gone into maybe the extent of detail that is now being considered. So I think maybe we might just need to resurrect an old report and put a little more detail in it. But I'll work with the manager of infrastructure and the director of public works and infrastructure.
Thank you.
Could I have a recorded vote?
You can. Any further discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, Councillor LeBlanc has requested a recorded vote.
Councillor LeBlanc,
No.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes, only because we've got a stack of work that this company has done, and I'm still to make a decision, a final decision will be in the future. So I certainly would like to hear from the residents that already live in that area.
Deputy Mayor Laura Connect,
Yes.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes,
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
That's carried.
That takes us to staff report development agreement with Claude Savini, B10 2021 872 Whites Road. Mr. Barry, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I have nothing to add at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect, that council receives the Planning and Development Department report dated December 13th, 2021, regarding a development agreement to fulfill condition 5 of provisional consent approval for municipal file number B10 2021. The council direct the mayor and the clerk to execute the development agreement provided in attachment 5. The council proceed to enact a bylaw authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign the development agreement pertaining to consent B10 2021. That council authorize the municipal solicitor through an acknowledgement and direction agreement to register the enacted bylaw for the development agreement, including making any necessary revisions to legal description names or undertakings as may be necessary. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion's carried. Sorry, everyone, my iPad is not behaving properly, so I'm back to the old-fashioned way. Thankfully, we're well into the 800 pages of our 1,000-page agenda. Just shy of 1,000 pages. I shouldn't exaggerate. It's not very fair. Helps when your power goes out for 25 hours. You got nothing to do but read. Turns out we have lots of flashlights. All right, so that brings us to the closure of road allowance and declaration of surplus sale of lands, application file number RC01 2021. Mr. Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect. The council receives a staff report dated December 13th, 2021 pertaining to road allowance closure application file number RC01 2021 requesting the declaration of surplus, closure, and conveyance of portions of the Center Street Road Allowance, and that council declare the east half of Center Street Road Allowance where it abuts lots 1 through 10 inclusive on Plan 39M 847 and the full width of the Center Street Road Allowance in other specific areas as described in this report to be surplus to municipal needs, and that the segment of the closed and conveyed road allowance south of Iroquois Street remains subject to a 10-meter wide right-of-way to be surveyed by the applicant in favor of the municipality through to Block 7 owned by the municipality in order to establish maintenance access, and that council passed the closure and conveyance bylaw included in this agenda, and that all costs and fees paid by the applicant in accordance with the road allowance closure policies and procedures, being the rate of $1,000 for the first 100 feet, plus $100 per additional feet of frontage, and that the municipal solicitor be directed by council to register the conveyance of the portions of the center road allowance as described in this report from the municipality to the owner of lands to 1984783 Ontario Incorporated and Gordon Toby Developments Limited for portions of closed and conveyed road allowance where immediately easterly abutting the same portion of the road allowance and cause a merger of title, all to the satisfaction of the municipal solicitor. Is there any discussion from members of council? Deputy Mayor.
So simply put, the group houses along Algonquin, we're going to leave that half of that road allowance for in the municipal ownership, and the rest we're going to convey to the builder. Is that correct?
I mean, that wasn't plain in the motion I just read.
Plain for
Director.
some, but
Yeah, I got a little word happy there. But
we're happy.
yeah, In the spirit of plain language, yes, that's the, what's happening here. The area on the backs of lots 1 to 10 on the Algonquin Street subdivision, there's a very defined swale there that's been constructed as part of the works in subject to subdivision agreement at the time. And the remaining portions are recommended to be declared surplus, closed and sold to the abutting owner to the east. All for the purposes of facilitating a future development and better location for a new road than where this road allowance is otherwise located.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
That area is 30 meters from their present property line. The people on Algonquin Street, you're talking 30 meters east of there. The portion that we would be left with.
It would be about 10 meters in width.
I mean, sorry, 10
Yeah,
meters.
30
I was
feet,
thinking
from their
30,
backyard line.
10
yeah.
meters, yes. thank
That's
you.
right.
That isn't that what the residents had asked for at one point, at least 10 meters, if I recall.
Director.
Yeah, they've always asked that the road allowance just stay in municipal ownership, so that the trees would be there and.
No, so the trees would
Yeah.
be there and there would be, you know,
There was-
vegetation and some wildlife. There won't be a lot left space there, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I look at the,
Hang on, Councillor Anderson, you asked a question and I think the director's trying to give you an answer.
Oh,
Director
I'm
Walsh.
sorry.
I paused there, sorry. The, yeah, so
Don't
2 meters
pause.
in width, and the interest was for the municipality, from the residents of lots 1 to 10 was to have no road closure at all and to keep it treed and free from any public activity, i.e. no public trails either. That was the original request.
so I could just ask if we don't agree to this and we ask for the entire space to be green space, the residents still don't want any, so we wouldn't have any use of it for like no trails, no nothing.
That is the request of the neighbors.
It's a request.
That's
I
the
guess.
request of the
Yeah.
neighbors. If we went down that road, it would be up to council
Wow.
and staff to decide
I
how
think
best
it's-
to use that property.
Yeah, excuse me, I keep interrupting you. But anyway, I think a couple of my colleagues here, or maybe all of my colleagues here, feel it's time for some green space. We've been moving pretty hard at putting asphalt in the community, and I think it's time to maybe hold back a little bit and preserve some green space that we do have in some of those areas that are getting highly developed. So I think based on that, I think I'm going to support keeping the green space.
Councillor Tadman.
If you do recall, Mayor and council that is present, I asked right at the start, who declares something surplus? And to me, I lived across from there for 27 years and saw it being built through the subdivision that went in. And it's sad to see just below that area. I drove by one day and all the trees were bulldozed below that. We got to start thinking about saving some with the way the climate change is. And you know, I never saw a fox or a deer in Gosport, and now they're there all the time. Not all the time, but they're in and out all the time. So I don't always agree with Councillor Anderson, but I think he's making a good point, and I would like to, if the time when it comes, I'd like to have a recorded vote on this one.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
If I can draw your attention to page 355, on a 389, which is a chart that's been presented to us off the official plan. And when you look to your tables, your legend on the side, significant provincial wetlands and wetlands. If you look at the road, 85% of the road is in a wetland. And about 5% is in a treed lot area. as per your graph and your thing. So basically, the question was asked, you agree with the lower trend? We're here to preserve our wetlands and not to let them be built on or something to be done. So this road is 80% wetland. So I think the town, the municipality should keep it as a wetland. The green space.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? If I'm reading council right, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, it sounds like we're getting a majority who may wish to defeat this motion that's in front of us. And if that's the case, I'm looking for a motion that would provide direction to staff moving forward. But a recorded vote has been requested on this motion, Madam Clerk, by Councillor Tedman.
May I assist, Mayor?
On that motion,
Yes, please.
okay, yeah, we'll get, we've got this motion on the floor. We have a vote on it, and then we will look for your guidance on a new motion. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Thank you, Clerk. Would you just read the motion so we're very clear on how we're voting?
the council receives the staff report dated December 13th, 2021 pertaining to road allowance closure application file number RC01-2021 requesting the declaration of surplus closure and conveyance of portions of the Center Street road allowance, and that council declare the east half of Center Street road allowance where it abuts lots 1 through 10 inclusive on Plan 39M A47. They're the lots that are abutting, I guess, on Algonquin Street. And the full width of the Center Street road allowance in other specific areas as described in this report to be surplus to municipal needs. And that the segment of closed and conveyed road allowance south of Iroquois Street remains subject to a 10-meter wide right-of-way to be surveyed by the applicant in favor of the municipality through Block 7 owned by the municipality in order to establish maintenance access. And that council pass the closure and conveyance bylaw included in this agenda. And that all costs and fees be made by the applicant in accordance with the road allowance closure policies and procedures, being the rate of 1,000 for the first 100 feet plus 100 per additional feet of frontage. And that the municipal solicitor be directed by council to register the conveyance of the portions of the center road allowance as described in this report from the municipality to the owner of the lands. Sorry. To 1984783 Ontario Inc. for the portions of closed and conveyed road allowance where immediately easterly abutting the same portion of the road allowance and cause a merger of title, all to the satisfaction of the municipal solicitor. Councillor Mary Tadman,
No.
Deputy Mayor Laura Connect,
Yes.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
No.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
No.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
No.
So it's been defeated.
I think what we'll do is we'll get another motion on the floor and I'll read that because it could be just as wordy if we turn it over to Director Walsh to write it. So Director, we have, I think we can probably go through this, but provide me with your next recommendation and we'll see if we can't parse out some of the wording already here.
Sure. A plan B is that in the event that a subdivision application is brought in and there is an environmental impact study looking at the issues that council is showing some interest and concern with regarding environmental features, that that environmental study can address that in response to council's interest. It may be that this wooded area is somewhat isolated and small because it is a narrow piece of land. And I won't get into the technical details, what's a significant woodlot versus what's not, but this can have a bearing. So I don't want to prejudice a potential opportunity for council to receive more information in the future of more detailed nature that would address council's concerns. So I don't want this motion, a defeat, to prejudice perhaps more information coming forward to council at a future date that might otherwise indicate to council's satisfaction that there might be a revisiting of the road allowance question, particularly when some of the concept plans offered in the correspondence of the package show quite a significant area to be retained as natural. So I just think there's more opportunity to learn more about this at a future date.
Pardon me, would it be wise of council to receive your report and refer it back to staff for further discussion with the developer, with the landowners, perhaps with Ms. Savini, and bring a new report forward?
I think so, Mayor. I think what I had in mind was a deferral until such time a subdivision application comes forward, but I think we can go with the wording of what you just described.
Go ahead.
The map that you've provided, Mayor to the Director, the map you've provided. So what you're stating, that this map that you provided, a study could prove that it's wrong.
Director?
The map provided was an import from provincial sources that assess things on a very broad landscape basis, acknowledging at the same time that once people get on the ground and look at things specifically, that things can change. Whether that is the case here, I don't know, but that is the general policy framework in dealing with matters of significant woodlots.
I can agree with that, but do you think that after a year that the residents that are on Algonquin Street deserve a closure?
Through the mayor, good question. This has been an extensive process for sure, but I think the fact that you have a road allowance on the back of your property, there might be always an acknowledgement that some of these issues are going to rise. I can't say for sure. I haven't heard any complaints about the longevity of the issue.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. The reason why I voted yes to the previous motion is because the lawyer for the residents said that they would be satisfied with this, if not the first one. And I'm just trying to finish this. We've discussed this many times. I was just trying to come to a conclusion and something that was somewhat satisfactory for everyone. And so I just wanted to state that I agree. We do need to, get an answer, I think, for these residents.
But the only reason these residents brought this forward is because there was a consideration to close the road allowance and give it to somebody else or sell it to somebody else. So that's when these residents came forward and said, well, hang on now, we may have an interest in this property. So the motion that I've drafted is that council receive the staff report pertaining to road allowance closure application, file RC 01-2021, and refer the matter to staff for further consideration. Are you making that motion? Yeah. Hang on. Are you seconding the motion? Is there a seconder? I'll second the motion. Just to throw it on the floor. Councillor Anderson.
Yes, hope I can remember. So if after this tonight, we still retain basically ownership of that entire strip there. So the future we still have control. Here's the word again, control. Like people are going to get sick of hearing that, but we will have we could still make decisions on that property, not meaning I would never give it all up. But if the developer was to do something and need a portion of it, a piece of it, a sidewalk or something very minimal, because when we look at the backyards of those homes, he was going to extend. At first, there was going to be substantial backyard, and then he was going to give up the backyard on that one side there. We talked about that at a previous council. So those lots looked like they were going to be a little smaller than the ones across the street. So there might be some discussion somewhere where they want to flex it a little bit or work it. I don't know if the roads have to be so wide. I understand that, but if the next council or this council looks at that at some point where it makes sense to, and the neighbors can be involved in that discussion, because I don't want them, Councilor LeBlanc's correct. I don't want to see them thinking about this or talking about this and worrying about this. I think in my impression, it's a done deal. It's green space. Let's keep it. But if somebody can bring a good explanation, a good story on why it would have to have any change that would be appropriate to the people living there at that time, whether it's 10 years from now or whether it's 10 months from now, I think as long as they're involved and kept informed of anything going on in their backyard. So I'm happy for them if we can leave this the way it is, and I think it's good for the communities, but we should listen. I'm always open to listen to our good builders in town to help us develop the town in the right direction. So I hope they understand us too. So.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Just to be clear, this does not put the issue of the road allowance to bed at all. It keeps it in municipal hands for now, but it certainly is an unopened road allowance that abuts a piece of property that the developer has significant interest in. So we'll be talking about this again. I can assure you, probably not in the not too distant future. Councillor Tadman?
We voted, majority voted against having this closed. Why do we have to bring it back for discussion?
We don't.
I would prefer to, because I think the majority has spoke. It's too bad two councillors couldn't be here tonight, but if it's closed, it's closed as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to compromise at this point. That's me personally.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc?
If that's a motion, I'll second that one.
There's a motion on the floor. What if we were to remove and refer the matter to staff for further consideration and just leave it as council received the report?
That's because I made the motion.
Yeah.
I can withdraw or we can receive the report. But, well, I get Mary, I'm going to withdraw on the motion. I do strongly believe in what we were talking about initially. I just need to, but I was listening to what the conversation was about future. There is the future going to be on the other side of that property. So just at least by having the door open, we can at least leave the discussion, but I'm sure the discussion will still arrive no matter what I say. So I'm gonna pull out on the motion.
So you're withdrawing the motion?
I'm withdrawing.
Does anyone wish to have their name on this as a mover? The motion is withdrawn. It would be appropriate, folks, to at least receive the staff report. We haven't received by motion the staff report. We've defeated.
I'll make a motion to receive the staff report.
Thank you.
The motion to receive the staff.
Thank you.
I guess we wouldn't receive it.
Madam Clerk, I'm saying C recommendation number 1, because that's what I'm about to read. Motion is moved by Deputy Mayor Connect, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council receives the staff report dated December 13th, 2021 pertaining to road allowance closure application, file number RC 01/2021, requesting the declaration of surplus, closure and conveyance of portions of Center Street road allowance. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Map attached. Go ahead. It's okay. I've put the staff report with the motion, so you'll see it. Well then I will defer that question to Ms. Polly over here. Thank you. All right, that brings us to unfinished business, of which there is none listed here. Then we go into bylaws. The first bylaw is a development agreement for 677 County Road 64, and it's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Brighton and Andrew Sherman, Mary Anderson, and Scott Anderson regarding a development agreement for the property legally described as part of Lot 25, Concession B, being Part 1 on Plan 39R 14371, Subsection 53, Subsection 51, Subsection 51, sorry, I'll start that again. Subsection 5312, Subsection 5125, Subsection 5126 of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Next bylaw is a development agreement for 872 Whites Road, and it's moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Brighton and Claude Savini regarding a development agreement for the property located at 872 Whites Road, legally described as Concession 1, part of Lot 26, being Part 1 on Plan 39R 14370, Subsection 5312, Subsection 5125, Subsection 5126 of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next bylaw is with regard to Rosslyn Estates, and it's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 to amend bylaw number 140/2002 as otherwise amended of the corporation of the municipality of Brighton as it applies to the lands described as part of Lot 1, Plan 490, Pond Area PL 490 Brighton, being Part 1 on Plan 39R 14342, part of Factory Street, Plan 28, being Part 5 on Plan 39R 14343, part of Lot 2, Concession 2, being Parts 6, 7, and 8 on Plan 39R 14342, STNC 396376, Municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. As the original motion was defeated, we won't be reading by law with regard to the close and convey. Which brings us to question period. Ms. Polly, are you aware of anyone joining us for question period? Thank you. I'll read the motion to proceed into closed session. If council passes this motion, we will take a 10-minute recess and we will reconvene at 8:30. This is moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect, that council resolves itself into closed session December 13th, 2021 at 8:19 p.m. Pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act as amended, subsection 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, specifically with regard to affordable housing sites. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried.